All right, let's discuss the financial instrument of debt. So what is behind the notion that debt can be useful? Now, as a former banker, a lot of people will say, well, bankers want you to believe that debt's useful because they make a cut. I don't agree, okay? There are situations in which debt can be useful, but you're going to see these are very, very limited situations. For the most part, it is always better to save than borrow, almost always. There are exceptions to that rule, and these are the exceptions to that rule, and kind of how you can test to see if you belong to that exception. So, just as a historic example, when John D. Rockefeller was expanding his business, he used loans from the bank to take advantage of opportunities that he had tested. He already knew that there was demand for what he was doing. So he borrowed money because he may not have had that money at the present time, but he knew that he was going to get a return on the money. For an example, if you have evidence that the full loan principal can be paid off in less than 2 months from the profits you would make from borrowing, we may agree that the debt will help you expand your current opportunity. Let's use an example with water solutions. You create a water solution that costs you $500,000 to create. A generator, let's say, that desalts the ocean. Costs you $500,000. But you have 10 customers lined up who want to buy it for $1 million, okay, each. So you can make $10 million when you sell this generator, and it's going to cost you $5 million to make. And you need to make a profit because you're solving a real problem, and it's a good thing to make a profit, especially when you're solving a real problem, right? Problem is you don't have $5 million to produce these 10 generators. Okay, so here's a question. If you know it's going to take 2 weeks to produce those 10 generators, that's going to cost you $5 million. It's going to take 2 weeks to produce that, and you know that you have 10 customers. Is it a good thing, or not a good thing? Is it useful to borrow the money, the $5 million, to build those 10 generators to then sell for $10 million? Okay. Now you'll have people debate. No, you should save money, and then you should then invest money. And like, okay, that's great, but you have to understand that how long will it take you to save to build up to $5 million? Right? That is the trick here, right? It's not that saving doesn't lead to opportunity. Saving does lead to opportunity. However, in this case, you have a solution, and it works, and you already have 10 customers lined up, right? You already have a $5 million cut in profit lined up for you, okay? I do not think in that situation debt is bad at all. Because within a month, you're already able to pay off the loan. So how much interest really accrued, right? Not very much, if any. Actually, if you pay it off that glad. So it depends on the loan, actually. But some loans, yeah, it actually takes a full month before interest accrues. So you'd be paying off before you ever paid any interest. But we're not talking about debt here for consumption, right? We're talking about debt for opportunity, okay? Let's give another example. Let's use student loans. A lot of people talk about how student loans are bad. Student loans to get a degree in theology, women's studies, what is the other one? Family development, psychology. We don't need these people. We just don't. They're not needed at all in our society whatsoever. A wasted opportunity. However, what about labor shortages like medicine? I talk about this a lot on the channel, and I'll hammer this point away. We have a major labor shortage in medicine, whether it's doctors, I can't say the anesthesiologist, if that's the word, nurses, there's some, and it depends on the nurses too, you can break it down. There's a huge labor shortage, right? Is it irrational for someone to borrow money and to get through school and then to get into these professions? Now, there is a key here, and this is very important. I'm going to be a little bit more skeptical about student loans and say that it must hurt when you do it. What do I mean by it must hurt? First, if you're borrowing $80,000 and you're going through school and I'm done, well, that's not much pain, right? A lot of the people that are going to school and borrowing this money, even for medical school, they're partying like crazy. You have to understand, if you're going to borrow money for school, you need to really sacrifice, okay? Because if the labor shortage suddenly self-corrects, you could be in trouble, okay? And that's why it really depends. If the labor shortage, again, when I'm talking about a labor shortage, I'm saying that I look at the BLS and I'm seeing that we're seeing growth of above 30%. Most professions are not growing that fast, right? That tells me something's going on. But even then, that does not mean, oh, I'm going to throw $80,000 and party it up while I'm in school, woohoo, and have fun, and who cares, and I'm going to have a good job. Well, what happens if you don't? Likewise, time is very important here, right? You need to get through school faster than 4 years. Got to do it in 3, okay, or 2.5. I've seen people, by the way, get through nursing school in a 4-year program, that is, in 2.5 years. So it's possible. You're going to have to push yourself. It's got to hurt, right? If it's not hurting, then you're not, first of all, you're not really testing yourself. And second of all, you are engaging in laziness. Laziness avoids pain. That's how you know it's laziness, right? That's the rule of my life. There's got to be some pain associated with what you do, because laziness doesn't like pain. But pain is good. Pain teaches us lessons, right? So you're pushing yourself and you're stretching yourself. So if there's a labor shortage in a profession, by all means, yes. I've talked about electricians and plumbers. Some people are able to get through a trade school in less than a year, and they may only borrow $5,000. But there's a labor shortage there, right? And if you can do it without borrowing money, even better. Sometimes you can get scholarships, right? But the thing is that we're looking at the opportunity and the return you're going to get, and you're not getting a degree like theology, whatever that. What do you do with a degree in theology? I mean, it's stupid. It's retarded. You're looking at the return you're going to get, but you still always want to make sure that it is hurting. This is keeping you honest, right? It's like working out. If I go working out, I just go through the motions. That's not honest. It's got to hurt. I kind of almost got to want to vomit, because that means it is working out, right? So it's got to hurt a little. That's okay. And make sure there's a labor shortage, and there's a future labor shortage. Like I said, medicine there's a lot of opportunities here, okay? So there are times that debt can be useful, but notice how what we're talking about is future opportunity. And I can't stress this enough, testing it. Why do I talk about the BLS? That's a test. That's a form of a test. Where's the demand? Who's going to need doctors in the future or medicine? Baby boomers, right? They're retiring, right? And then we have another big generation, the millennial generation on the way, right? There you go. I mean, we're going to need doctors and stuff. Those are forms of testing it. I'm not just making this up. I'm not just grabbing it out of thin air, right? As long as you're doing that, and as long as it hurts a little, I can promise you, you're taking advantage of a good opportunity. And that debt may be right. I would still speak with the banker that you trust to make sure it is. Always get another person's opinion. Don't trust what I say just because I say it, right? Get someone else's opinion. But that could be a useful situation where debt's going to help you out. It's going to cut the distance that it takes to get to a certain place.